Welcome to a Dagger for Sightblinder Wheel of Time podcast for our second reaction episode, I guess,
Right,
technically.
season one, but episode 4.
Right. Adam, how are you?
So good, Sarah. How are you?
Also so good.
We're both traveling, so maybe not so good, but
Yeah.
maybe a sarcastic so good.
I would like to go home.
Let's just go home.
Um,
We're both using borrowed equipment here, so we're a little grainy. Our sound quality sucks. So if people watching this think that our previous stuff sucked, then
ugh,
yeah. So
sorry.
just soldier your way through it. Just keep watching anyways.
The content will be worth it, right?
Right. Or I guess listening, because we'll release this on audio way before we do it on video, probably.
Yeah, for sure. So now that we've explained why we look and sound like crap.
It can't be us.
It's not us.
There's a reason for it.
Reason. Do we want to dive into this? Because this was intense.
This is my favorite one out of all of them by a pretty big margin, I'd say.
I cried.
Whoa.
Again.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't cry. You know what I cried at today was I was watching Sound of Music of some with the in-laws.
Yep.
And there's this part where all the kids like go and hug their dad, like he finally like opens up to them.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, I'm crying.
You're crying.
Well, just teared up a little, but I was like, whoa.
Well, we're just a bunch of criers today then. I did not watch Sound of Music.
Oh, I did. Some. Yeah, it's pretty weird. But I actually like that movie. Anyways, we're not talking about Sound of Music. This is a little more violent.
Yeah. Okay. Where
in a good way.
where do we even start? At the beginning?
So we have 3 storylines. Maybe we do like the 2 smaller ones and then just focus entirely on the main one.
Yeah.
If that works for you.
Yeah. Okay. So
you choose Perrin.
I was gonna say let's start with Perrin, because this one kind of seemed odd to me. I just feel like it didn't match the books.
Okay. I guess I should just say right now, I felt like it just wasn't much. I felt like it matched the books okay though, a little bit.
It wasn't much, but it just felt very, I mean, like it matched it in the sense of like Egwene being like lighthearted around Aram, but I felt like she was also focusing on Perrin a lot, which wasn't the vibe that I picked up from her reading that part of the books.
Yeah, she did. I thought she showed a little more maturity in this, which I liked actually.
And I'm curious if they are doing that because Elias is not in the show.
Right. Well, yeah, like you have to have someone who, like, because he's not there, they need to be a little more on top of things.
Yeah, exactly. And I found Aram to be, he doesn't come across arrogant in the TV show.
No, he's not bad, actually.
No, he's not the most annoying character.
No, he's surprisingly. I mean, you could maybe make that argument if you from just that one like scene or from that one story arc, but no one is really annoying, frankly.
No. So nothing really. I mean, it kind of progressed a little bit, but nothing crazy.
No, I mean it kind of progressed the way. So they're like, okay, we're gonna go with them to Tarvalin, and then
Mhm,
Perrin's doing the silent, just doesn't talk thing. Like he talks to
mhm.
her, but you don't know what he's thinking. He's very pensive, and I hope that changes. Frankly, I need something to change because if he's just gonna stare at things, I don't want like I don't care that much, you know?
I will say I agree with you, but they did a really great job with him being pensive and highlighting that when Isla was talking about the axe and how has your life changed since you picked up an axe, and like they did such a great job highlighting, like I could feel his internal monologue with him just being pensive and staring.
I will say they did a better job of that this episode than other ones. Because other
Mhm.
episodes, you're just like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I feel like sometimes, and maybe this is what they were trying to do, like because in the books they're trying. He's like, well, everyone thinks I'm stupid, but I'm not. I just think a lot. Before I say anything, and I'm slow to act, and people take that as mental slowness. Maybe in the first ones, I just kept getting like just a tiny bit of like Forrest Gump vibes of like, are you stupid, boy? Like he's just quiet, and people are like, what are you, stupid?
Uh,
And maybe they're like intentionally trying to make us feel that way.
maybe
I
that
don't
would be
know.
kind of silly.
Well, I mean, that way he can prove how he's actually very seen really anything good from him. That like he fought the Trollocs,
Mhm,
but he was not like awe inspiring at it.
mhm.
Like he did as well as you might hope for from a person his age and his vocation and stuff. But otherwise, like what other good things has he done really? Like
Yeah,
what things are you like, oh yeah, he did this? Like what capable things?
I mean, he fixed that wheel.
And he's like, but anyone could do this. And she's like, I know.
Let me pander to you anyway.
Right. She's like, I just thought you might need a win because I don't feel like you get many of those.
Which, yeah, they really do have to figure out a way to bring in his internal monologue somehow, because it's just not working right now. I do agree with you there.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. Like he's one of my favorite characters in the other one,
Yeah,
in the book series, and in whatever. I'm willing to be persuaded still. Like there's still time,
yeah.
and if it's a slow build, I'm good with that. So I felt like this was like maybe what, like 5 minutes of total screen time or something. It wasn't that much.
It was not that much at all. Hardly anything. I think like 5 to 10 minutes max.
Yeah, yeah, and apparently Egwene is still in love with Rand.
Yeah, that surprised me too. It also just surprised me that Aram was like so observant about this. I was like, who is this guy? Like, what's going on? Tell me your deepest, darkest secrets.
Well, okay, so this would be that there's some major spoilers that I'm going to avoid in the book series, but I am going to just kind of allude to them a tiny bit on the peripheries for people who have read it.
Mhm.
Um, Aram did hint at it, which doesn't happen in the books, but he hints at potentially taking a new vocation or something at some point. Like, he's kind of pointing it at Egwene. He's like, sometimes they do this, sometimes Tuatha'an,
Mhm.
they leave and go do this. And they never talk about that in the books. Feel like that's fabricated in this show, which I guess I'm fine with. But um, like his allusion to maybe doing something else hints at something that happens in the books later that is it was interesting. It's just something to keep an eye on, I guess.
Right. I did notice that he seemed to be talking about like the leaving, or like that he had that whole analogy about the leaf falling from the tree and the wind blowing it, and sometimes the wind just blows it away from the tree. And I was like, huh, interesting.
Yeah. There's there's a lot to think about in that. I
Yeah.
won't say more than that, I think, but
Okay, that's good to know because that whole thing I was like really paying attention to and following, and I found it interesting. So I'm
yeah,
glad that that's the case.
I'm glad you're
Um,
glad.
and that's pretty much everything that happened with Perrin and Egwene. Like that's it.
Yeah, but I thought that was fine. We could talk about the next one, I guess.
Rand and Matt and Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
which I really thought because Tom was like, we got to get out of here fast. I thought they were just going to get on the boat. I thought for sure they were getting on the boat, just like just a delayed boating.
delayed boating. Yeah. I don't know what I thought was gonna happen, but I I feel like I pointed out maybe on our last episode where you can kind of see that Matt is starting to be a little bit affected by the dagger, maybe like just a tiny bit, and like we saw it, it's happened,
Yeah,
it's arrived.
agreed.
Like,
Oh, before I forget, I just want to point this out. We talked in our last podcast about how in the show we're supposed to see Loyal in this
yeah,
episode, and we
you're,
didn't.
you're right, we didn't.
And so it calls, like, my guess is that what we did see was just an initial like dumb look, and they're gonna CG him up. I hope, because he looked dumb AF in the thing, like we had said, and he's not, and he wasn't in this show. And the guy who said that it was in the show in this episode, like he was the one who's like, yeah, that's it's gonna be in there, and it's not gonna change. So
I completely forgot that we were supposed to see him because that's how distracted I got by the episode and like enthralled by it.
yeah, I'm not even disappointed. I'm not even mad. I wanted to point that out because we had talked in the podcast about how we had heard that it's supposed to be, he's supposed to look super dumb, and we didn't get to see it this time. Maybe he still does look dumb, but it's deferred dumb lookingness,
Yeah.
dumbness looking.
Dumb.
Who's the more dumb, the person who's dumb, or the person who can't pronounce what they are?
Maybe we'll see him next week and maybe he won't look so dumb.
Let's hope. Let's hope he doesn't look as dumb as I'm making myself sound right now.
Oh man. It's late. We've had long days.
Yeah. So okay. Anyways, back to Rand and Matt
Yes.
and Tom. I thought it was interesting. Like, so in the books, the dagger doesn't mess with animals,
No.
but this episode was super interesting on a few different levels. So, gosh, I just have so many thoughts. But so they're framing it. They're framing the dagger like Tom is drawing a conclusion that he never drew in the book
No.
series. He's telling them that he thinks that Matt is a channeler.
Yeah.
Because he's getting sick, animals won't go by him, and like that, none of that stuff happened in the book at all, which I think I'm fine with. It adds a little bit of suspense and drama, actually, especially if you've never seen this show before.
Right. And it also, I think they're really playing into that whole like which one of them is it?
Well, and I say seen this show before, but I meant like read the book series. Like if you've never read the
Right.
book series, haven't had it spoiled, it's like, well, the dragon's gonna channel, and Matt might be the one, because maybe the dagger gave him the power to do it.
Right, exactly. But I mean, I feel like you would know that it's not the dagger that does that. Like you would know the dragon doesn't need a dagger in order to channel.
Well, people who are not initiated into this
Totally.
world might not know. I mean, maybe it is just like an artifact that lets you start channeling.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying maybe people, if you want to make comments or something, I don't even know, come talk to us on Discord and tell us what your perceptions are. But I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, Tom's like, we're gonna like take care of him anyways. Like Tom was cool. He was still like, hey, I want to take care of you boys.
And I love that we got into his nephew Owen's storyline. Like, I love that that was brought up. It really humanized Tom. And then you can understand more as a viewer why he is helping Matt and Rand so much, like why he is looking out for them. I also really liked going back to Matt and how he's now being affected. You can see that he still has his personality traits inside of him, even though he is starting to like get affected by this dagger, because as soon as that little girl was there, you instantly saw that he made the connection to his sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you could see that he kind of snapped out of it, and the true Matt came forward in a sense.
Yeah. He wasn't that funny in this episode, but I mean,
No.
he also didn't have. He had like 7 lines or something, maybe more than that. But like I mean, this was as little screen time as Perrin and Egwene got, really.
Yeah, he was busy being sick and pointing his dagger around.
Pointing his dagger around. I was like, what was he doing?
Randomly finding fades with it.
Yeah, so yeah, they go into the they have their encounter with the farm folk, and so this was supposed to be originally, apparently this was supposed to be the Grinwells from the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they changed it from away from the Grinwells, but I know they renamed the little girl's character.
Right.
They made her really little instead of, like, in the book when they go to the Grinwell's house, there's like a like almost a stereotypical, like just, I don't know, moon-eyed, farm girl who's just, just, he's like, hey, the haystack's over there, kind of character,
Yeah.
and so it changed it. I like this change though. I don't care about girls just like staring at Rand or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. That's going to happen at some point. I'm sure that we're going to see more of that, because that's just a constant thing with Rand. Is everyone's like, oh, you're so hot. And for right now, though, I thought it was cool to have Matt be a little humanized there. I mean, he's very human anyways, but just seeing him have that interaction with her was, to me, much more meaningful than some farm hussy trollop, just like making sexual advances.
It was way more meaningful because, again, it goes back to Matt's character. It goes back to him being the like protective big brother. Like it completely plays into that in the best way. Like that to me was a genius change to make.
Yeah, I really loved it. And honestly, I thought there is a little bit of like some sex things a little bit later, not like super explicit, but I like that they've mostly just taken the focus off of that. So like there's relationships and everything, but there's opportunities that they could have put gratuitous stuff in there that's very distracting, like that steals from the narrative, I feel like. And like instead of doing that kind of thing here, that they could have put an older, skinky whatever girl in, and made it all, but instead they made it a little girl and made it like meaningful. It was really cool.
Yeah. And then it hit so much harder when Matt and Rand were leaving after Tom, sacrifices himself to the fade type thing for them to get away. And you like the imagery of them riding away and the pan down to her doll on the ground.
Hmm.
That was heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah, it was tragic. It really was. Yeah, so I can't dwell on it, but
Oh,
what?
it's sad.
Yeah, I'm not gonna cry, I promise. But but it was sad. The one thing I do want to point out about their interaction is like this little cookie there that for people who are in the know on Wheel of Time, and you're a tiny bit in the know at least.
Mhm.
If you've read book 2, and this isn't a major spoiler, at least the part that I'm going to talk about. But she named her doll Brigitta,
Yeah.
and Brigitta is a hunter for the horn, like she's a hero
Hmm.
from past legends, and it was a cool little illusion, and it holds deeper meaning for me having read more of the books. I'll
Hmm.
just say that,
Okay.
but it was just a cool little, like, it was a very intentional naming of a doll, like that doll. It was just a cool little side thing. I don't think it's meaningful now, but it's, you know,
But it may be later.
it will absolutely be
Mhm.
very important. Well, the naming of the doll, I don't think will ever matter, but that name will be relevant later.
Yeah.
And then, oh, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, you hang on first.
No, I didn't know if you wanted to point out anything else on this Matt Rand Tom um
Oh, so
10 minutes.
Tom has had like 10 minutes of screen time total. Like, he's just this cool guy.
Hmm.
And then he's like, I'm gonna save you guys. And we barely get to know him. And then he just like sacrifices him from the fade, like himself from the fade, and they're like, all right, peace out.
See ya.
And I liked how capable he was against the fade, though. Like, he went in
Yeah.
swinging, and he got some hits in.
Tom in the show. So Tom in the show and Tom in the books to me are two vastly different people.
They're pretty different.
Like
They
I
are.
in the show he just feels so um like jagged almost, and in the books I get more of this like introverted low profile vibe, which is hilarious because he's a gleeman. So
Well, I mean, there are probably a lot of entertainers who are introverts. I mean, because you can spend tons of time working on your craft without
totally.
people around, and then you just have to go and, whatever. But I like this version of Tom better, frankly. I mean,
I'm not
he's
mad about
younger.
it.
He just feels more dangerous, honestly.
Yes. Yes.
Like, he feels more capable, even though the other book Tom is just fine. It's
Mhm.
just, but now he's gone. Goodbye, and we're supposed to think he's dead.
Right. Spoiler.
Yeah. Well, so if you watch the casting news and stuff, you know that he's at least going to. We'll just say, well, at least he's going to be in a flashback in season 2, because he is signed for season 2.
Right. So we could theoretically not see Tom the rest of the season.
I don't think we will.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah, we just got introduced to him. I feel like if there's anything I dislike about this episode, it's that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sad.
Hmm.
I like Tom a lot, so I'm not happy about that.
So yeah, he fought the Fade, and they run away,
Mhm.
and now, yeah, and the Grinwells, or whatever family that is,
They're
who took him in, they were kind about it,
mhm.
and peace out. You shouldn't have helped them, suckers.
they're they're dead. Oh man. That poor family.
Yeah,
Ah.
I know. It's one thing I'll say about this series as a whole is it's
Mhm.
so much darker than, like, I always feel like the Wheel of Time when I read it or listen to it. It sounds so bright, and like even the dark bad things are like have vibrant colors and happy, and or maybe not happy, it's like tense and crazy, but a lot of times like it's very crisp and very, very well accentuated. I don't know, like all of the characters just seem so vivid, and in this one it's just like I'm wearing sunglasses the whole time. Like everything is just darker and more gritty a little bit.
It is so dark. Like, excuse me, sorry. I feel like even when they're happy and celebrating, like not to go back to Perrin and Egwene, but when they were dancing and stuff, it still felt dark.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems, it feels kind of hopeless
Yeah, exactly.
everywhere. It's just like wolves are chasing me. Like we have to talk to a bunch of weirdos in colorful wagons. We have to, like we're at the mercy. Like where are the armed soldiers from these different nations and stuff? Like we have white cloaks just going around and just chopping witches' hands off and burning them and doing what they want. And we have Aes Sedai going around and gentling people and imposing their will and killing people and maneuvering. You have villagers who are pushing each other off of cliffs into water and hoping they don't drown for as a coming of age ceremony. Like we haven't seen anything that's bright and hopeful yet. It's just like, and meanwhile we have the ravening hordes of Trollocs just trying to kill people. There are cities that built walls with no gates in them so that all the people just disappeared to some weird random thing, and then Bella just like vanishes into a puff of ash, and like it's just completely hopeless. That every aspect of it is like what's wrong with this world? There's no order to it. There's just like factions destroying each other.
Yeah, there's no good here. Just sadness.
Yeah, it's very dark, and I mean, I think I've mostly made my peace with it, but it is a little bit, feels a tiny bit oppressive. And actually, the big scene, the one with Lan and Nynaeve and all the Aes Sedai camp, like in a way, this one was a little brighter. There's some actual like fun, sitting around the campfire laughing and drinking, and joking kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a good transition. We can get into Lan, Nynaeve, and Moraine, and Logain.
Yeah,
this was the meat of the episode. Was this?
Yes. Yeah, it's really, I mean, gosh, there's so much. So the very start of it, I love that he genuinely thinks he's the Dragon Reborn, and he spares the king, and the king like now the king follows him.
I loved right away when you saw him channel. You saw it, like you saw that channel. It was done the same way as Moraine and all the Aes Sedai, excuse me, and then you saw it go black.
Right.
And I was like, ooh, I love this. Like that little change was so good.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's like it's still the same power, but it's tainted, and so it's really cool.
Yeah, and you could see like that madness setting in him. I thought that was amazing. Like that's what I noticed right away. I was like, oh, that perfect, great, good job. Yeah, and so like you said, he genuinely thinks he's the Dragon Reborn, and they've got him, basically imprisoned for most of the episode. And you can just see the toll it's taking on the Aes Sedai to do this.
So there's a change. So Moraine gets there and they heal her, and then instantly she can get up. Like with a wound like that, typically in the books, you like the way they heal people, she would be like laid up in bed for a couple days probably, because that was a pretty bad wound. But immediately she gets up and she takes, like they found that this was a change that I don't know, it was very, they kind of needed to on like functional level, but they made it so that individual Aes Sedai power
Mhm.
was more important in this. They needed two individual Aes Sedai to shield Logain, but they had to be a certain like power level. And so even though there was multiple Aes Sedai in the camp, normally like you could just have like five or like if they're weaker, you just have 3 or 4 or 5 other Aes Sedai go in and fill in for a stronger sister to
Mhm.
make it just multiple shields. But in this case, they framed it as there are only 3 people who are strong enough, and then Moraine comes in, and it's kind of nice because then it shows us her relative strength. She's of like the higher tier strength
Right.
for the Aes Sedai. Like we don't know if she's stronger than Leandrin or Alana or whoever the other chick was, but we know that she's in that same ballpark.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, and I just like it made sense to show that though, like, and to see that they were actually straining, because then later on you can understand not only how strong they are, but how strong Logain is.
And how strong someone else is at the end of the episode.
Yes, exactly. um, I do like, I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I did really enjoy the campfire talk, because that also highlighted more of the relationship between warders and Aes Sedai, um, which I thought was
Yeah.
good. Like it's a little fillery and backgroundy, but they did it in a good way, because they're, instead of just explaining it to the viewer, like you're learning about it because Nynaeve's learning about it. Like it's this whole proper way of kind of spoon feeding the audience this information.
Right. Well, so it's interesting. You haven't met Alana yet, I don't think.
No, I haven't.
So I won't say much more than she's an important character in a lot of the different books. Like she comes in and out of the story, but she's like, when I saw her, I was like, oh, well, she's not gonna die. And then they named the other one, and I was like, oh, I don't recognize her. Like she could die. That's fine.
And then that's what happened.
Yeah, and then she did, and I was like, okay, well, deuces.
Called it, just like with Perrin's wife.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, they couldn't off Alana just like that. I mean, they did off Abel Cawthon just like that. So or Bella. So maybe not
Yeah.
everyone is safe as I assume, but it's at the same time, Alana being there was really cool though, because she's very interesting. I
Yeah.
can't later in the books she's very but I thought it was interesting. So they really hinted at the warder Aes Sedai bond, like they were saying, like it's closer than any like parent and child or wife and man and wife bond. It's closer than that. But then you see Alana, you see these two men who were kind of like draped over each other, like
Mhm.
around, like it looked like they were together.
It did.
Which I was like, I guess warders, like there's nothing that says like to be a warder you have to be straight or whatever. Like I
Right.
don't there's never ever any evidence of that in the books, which is why it kind of like shook me for a sec. But
Mhm.
I mean, I don't. There's like almost no evidence of any kind of male, of any gay people at all in the book series. There's plenty of like lesbian things in the book series, so you can tell Robert Jordan's got a slightly problematic worldview.
So it's just it's a change that maybe wasn't highlighted in the books as something that could be, quote unquote canon.
Right. I mean, I'm fine with it. I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. That's fine. But it was at first I was like, wait, no, they can't. Oh, why not? Why can't they? Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing that
Well,
says they can't.
and they kind of alluded to that not being a big deal anyway in episode 3, when Rand was talking to Dana, and Dana thought that Rand
Oh
and
yeah.
Matt were together, right? Like, and
Well, a show like this is going to normalize that stuff more, right?
yeah, totally.
Whichever side, if, like the social side of it. Like they're going to make it more modern, I guess, is all I'm saying.
Right.
You know, Robert Jordan may have very well have been homophobic. I have no idea, but they weren't going to transmit that if there is any of that. They were gonna make it modern, you know.
Right. It's just the way it is. Like it's not nothing to bat your eye at.
Yeah. Well, and there's nothing overtly against any of those groups either. It just like isn't included
Right.
in the books. And so but I thought but then it was funny because a wrinkle occurred because Alana then comes up and grabs both of them, and she's like holding one of their hands.
Yeah.
And Nynaeve even she's like, the three of them don't, you know, and everyone
And
just
I'll
like
just get this look.
yeah. Like, well, they share a tent. I mean, you know, if you're okay with getting, and the men are like, we are exhausted. So funny.
I feel like Nynaeve learned a lot in this episode.
Yeah.
And speaking of Nynaeve, I loved her attitude to Leandrin.
Yeah.
Like, just when Leandrin came up and was like, "Oh, I like your braid," and pronounced her name wrong, first of all, like
Right.
rude.
As an affectation, like she did it just to put her off balance.
Oh, 100%. You could tell it was intentional. I was like, you don't need to hear Nynaeve say her own name to know how to say her name.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no. And I mean, I don't think it put her off her balance at all.
Yeah, I liked Nynaeve a lot here. I mean, at first I was like, can you just stop being such a grumpy bee here? Like, she's like, I'm gonna come down and get some food and then go up in the rocks again. Like, I'm not part of the camp. You know, I'm just hanging out in the periphery. And you know, she kind of loosened up. I was fine with it. She and Lan were kind of getting to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Ooh, I liked when Leandrin was leaving. She said, and while she was looking at Lan for just a minute, she tells Nynaeve, any women are welcome in the red tent.
I noticed that she said women.
Yeah, I was like, oh, because you're all reds and you distrust men. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
I noticed that.
I love that they explained what greens are, and they kind of left in the open what a blue sister was. Like we hear Leandrins, like they're just spies, but you know they're not that. You just know that she's prejudiced against Blue Aja. But then green or the battle Aja, and that doesn't, like, you don't find out about that till probably book 3 or 4, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. I like that they're bringing in all the different Ajas. Like, you're starting to see it all kind of just meld together.
Oh well, this is why I loved it, because I loved the politics of it. Like that's what, like, all the Aes Sedai are constantly scheming against each other, and so you have Leandrin, who is like disparaging the blues but trying to get Nynaeve, you know, to like confide in her or whatever. She wants to know what Moraine's doing. And then you have a green who sends her warder to go get information from Lan and trying to, you know, understand. And then she also is trying to get Alana, who's also green, to get information from Moraine. And Moraine sees through it, and she's like, well, I'm gonna just play, you know, like they're all playing their games. And it's, to me, very, very enjoyable, because that's the whole series, is all of them just like, how much do you know? Like, what do you know? How much can I tell you? How can I even trust you? Like, we're friends, but we can't be close friends because there's things that I can't tell you. Well, and it's great.
And you could see that so clearly in the fact that they are all trying to contain Logain, keep him imprisoned, but you can tell they don't really trust each other. Like, they do, but they don't. Especially Leandrin.
Well, yeah, I mean, they started the show off with her being like pretty awful, and they framed it in a way that's like, the Reds are going against the dictates of the Amyrlin seat. Yeah. I also thought it was funny. They're like, how's the Amyrlin seat? He's like, she's still in her seat. Like, she's not doing anything. Like,
Yeah, they do frame the Reds that way, where you automatically are like, oh, okay, they're just doing their own thing. They don't care.
right. But they're still all on each other's team. It's
Mhm.
just like, it's like, okay, we have this mission, but the way we're going to define how to solve this mission and the dictates of it, like, it's all going to be interpreted through our lodge's lens.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
warders, they're all just like, I really loved how the warders were like, it's an honor to serve, like they revered their Aes Sedai, like they took it very seriously. I thought that was really cool, seeing that level of respect for their Aes Sedai. Like, they're all have camaraderie and they're drinking together and whatever, and they
Mhm.
may not even be that good of friends. Their Aes Sedai might hate each other, but at the end of the day, like, they'll respect each other, and they all feel like they're serving a higher purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. It was really well done. Um,
Oh man, I'm like have chills even now. It's just like, I mean, I don't mean to like talk down to you here. I promise. It just like, after watching the show so much, or not watching the show, sorry, but like reading the books so much and seeing this, like, they captured the feel of it so well, because like, it's just, you haven't seen a ton of interplay between Aes Sedai. You've seen some now in the books, but
Mhm.
it like, it's just a consistent thing that the Aes Sedai are always just maneuvering against each other, and this was a perfect encapsulation of that.
See, I'm glad you thought so, because I was watching it and I was like, I really like it. Like, it seems like it's being done and portrayed really well. I'm like, but is it actually being portrayed really well in comparison? So that's good.
It was so cool. I am super impressed by it.
Yeah.
So
Um, yeah.
so yeah, let's talk about. So they're all like in the camp together. They're finally,
We're gonna talk like the army? Can we touch on the army? Is this where we're going?
of course, yeah. Let's get to the action now.
'Cause this was intense.
Yeah,
Like, so obviously this is the king's army. Like, he's now serving Logain because Logain spared him at the beginning of the episode.
right. He thinks that's he's the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah,
Oh, and
exactly.
they also framed it as Logain might actually be the dragon. Like, they're not sure if he is or
Mhm.
not.
Right.
Which in the books, that was never a question. It was always like, no, always a, you know a false dragon.
Mhm.
But this added some tension of like, and it was really interesting when Lan and Moraine were talking, and he was like,
Yes.
or one of them was like, what happens if we just let the Red Aja gentle him? Which, gentling, I don't even know if they talked about it. Like, gentling is just severing someone from the source, and then they
Right.
die. They can't live without the power, kind of like it steals their will to live to be without it. And so, anyways, yeah, it's very interesting that.
I
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I love that Lana and Maureen had this conversation about it.
Yeah, I loved how close they were. They like sat shoulder to shoulder,
Mhm.
and they clearly cared a lot about each other. Not necessarily in any kind of sexual way, but like, they were clearly, like, they demonstrated the closeness of that Aes Sedai Warder bond right
Yeah.
after they had just talked about it.
And you could tell that Moraine and Land both were respectful and wanting to hear each other's opinion on this. And I think it was Land that was like, he's 10 years too old. Like,
Yeah.
logically, if you're following the prophecy, doesn't make sense. So it was really refreshing to see. Because I would think that when you're in this situation, you don't know, you're looking for it, you might be willing to overlook certain details to make the puzzle piece fit, right? So it's nice
Right.
to have someone be that voice of reason and say like, hey, remember these factors.
Hmm.
Do you still feel this way? Do you
Right.
still think this? And kind of make you have a reality check.
Okay, so Okay, there's so much to unpack now too for the fighting. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so Logain's army shows
Hmm.
up. There's a flight of arrows over everyone, and
Hmm.
Nynaeve has kind of had a moment, and so Lan is suddenly like there in front of Nynaeve, protecting her, which is cool.
Yeah.
But then, like, it's well, where's Moraine? And also, Alana stops
Hmm.
all the arrows in mid-flight, and they showed that scene all over the place in the trailer. But then what
Hmm.
they didn't show was all these men charging at him, and she just flipped the arrows downward and just
Yeah.
hammered the first ranks of guys coming in. I was just like, yes, that was so cool. That doesn't happen in the books, but I was like, I wish it did. It was so cool.
Well, like that's she's a green Aja, right? Like that's what she's supposed to do.
Well, I was like, wait, is that allowed in the Three Oaths? Oh yeah, this is like they're attacking. Actually, this is you could define this as the last extreme in defense of your life or whatever. So,
Right.
but yeah, it was just so cool. And then, like there's the Aes Sedai and their warders basically,
Hmm.
and they're just destroying a whole army together.
It was wild to watch. And then while they're doing this, you have Moraine, um, Leandrin, and I can't remember her name. I want to say it was Carrion or something like that, or Coraine.
We could just call her Naga, like not going to be in the show anymore.
So rude. But they're inside with Clegane and try to keep him contained, and he just starts pushing back. I'm like,
Okay,
this is
so this is a thing I don't know about yet. I don't. Well, I'll have to watch it again maybe, but it really. So yeah, they're fighting outside, but then Moraine comes in. So he flips it like they're knocked out unconscious, and Moraine shows up
mm-hmm,
just alone, and she has this really intense conversation with him.
mm-hmm.
And then she's like, "What I want you to know is that you ain't,
You ain't it.
you're not it." And then like after she found his information, like, why do you think you're the dragon? Then the other two like rolled over and all of them combined to reshield him. And I wonder though, it seemed so coordinated. Did
Mm-hmm.
they let him break free for Moraine to
Ooh.
go in and question him and get information?
Oh.
Because I don't know if Leandrin and Naga were going to do that for like they don't really necessarily trust her a ton. I don't know, but maybe they put their heads together and decided to try that.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
I mean, it sounds tricky enough for Moraine at least, and the other two, if they could overhear, that might have been reward enough for them because
Mm-hmm.
they get to know a glimmer of what Moraine is doing and what his answer would be, why, as to
Yeah.
why, because he wasn't answering before.
And then like theoretically as well, like if that was the case, you have Moraine now telling you you're not it. You're actually going mad. These voices you hear are
Yeah,
it's not past lives you think you're hearing kind of thing. Like you're going crazy, and maybe kind of knock him off his footing a little bit so that they can contain him again,
yeah,
which
yeah.
obviously doesn't go well.
Well, it doesn't go well, but at the same time, they like there's like, well, we have three of us, like we can do this, and not to mention, if it was staged, they would assume that Alana would also be able to come and back him up
Right.
as well. But then his army just happened to come along at the time that Alana just had to stay there and hold him off, which was
Right.
really cool imagery. Like she's like, no, you guys go to the cave and check on Moraine,
Mm-hmm.
and like we'll hold him off. And it's just like her and her two warders.
Yeah.
But they like the way they were fighting together and like hiding behind like working together in concert, and she's just blowing holes in their enemy ranks, and it
it
was
was
just badass.
it was so well done. And then I really it was so sad, but I did enjoy seeing it when Logain again eventually like knocks these Aes Sedai around, and he ends up killing
Naga.
whatever. Naga. I don't
We're just gonna call her Naga because who cares?
Karen. Uh but it immediately cuts to the reaction on her warder and how he knows, like he felt it. And that goes back to what they were saying earlier, like this bond that you have between a warder and Aes Sedai is more powerful and than any other bond that you will experience.
Right. Well, yeah. So it like what happens in the books. I don't know if you've seen this, but when an Aes Sedai dies and she still has a warder, he goes into a blood rage and has to go and try to kill whoever killed her. So like what he did was, well, he was just like, oh, you killed her. Like he had no choice. He had no choice to be rational. Like he had to try to kill Logain.
Right. And I mean, and then we see like the outcome of that, of him, I guess it's his two battle axes, or
yeah, just exploding and like killing everyone.
It's like instant shrapnel, basically.
Yeah.
Like Logain just turned it. It was. And then I started crying, like sobbing, because I was like, first of all, I was like, you see Moraine injured again, and you're like, you literally just got healed.
Really?
Like, come on. But then you see Lan, and it's just throat, like, I was like, I was a mess. I was like, they can't kill Lan. Like, you can't kill Lan. Like, what are you doing?
Right. Well, and Nynaeve, the whole battle, she's like holding her little dagger, like hiding behind a tree, like, don't hurt me. And she kills someone actually, because he's just like runs into her. He's like, I have an axe, but I don't have a torso. And she's like, I guess I'll hit your torso with my knife. Like that works well for me. but you know, she's so lost, and then she gets in there, and
oh my god!
And then I was like, I don't think they've told us that she can channel yet. Like they tell she's told she can channel way earlier in the books, but no one knows. And so I was like, oh man, like, and I'm like, Lan is not gonna die. Moraine is not gonna die. That this isn't gonna happen in episode 4. Like this isn't gonna happen. And so, you know, but I got serious chills, and then she just like exploded, like the mass heal,
and you could see her silhouette in that when it happened too. Like, you could see her braid, like basically floating. It was.
I didn't notice that off.
If you rewatch it, you can see her braid like floating up in the air, like as if there's floating from like the explosion of her channeling.
Super awesome.
It was.
Yeah. Well, and then so this is the second red herring they're giving us, though, because it's like, could she be the Dragon Reborn? Because right before that, Moraine was like, you need to realize, Logain, how weak you are compared to what the bonfire that the Dragon Reborn is going to be. And then she just like just dominated everything.
And then Logain like repeated what Moraine had just said too. So they're doubling down on trying to make you question who it is.
Right. Yeah, it was really cool though to see Nynaeve just destroy, just heal everyone. Not in the books, but very worthwhile anyways. As like, all right, like that was badass. That was seriously amazing. And then the Aes Sedai get together, and even though the Amyrlin seat had said not to gentle him, they gentled him. And even though like Liandrin was being opportunistic here, I was like, you know what? They need to do this. Like the Amyrlin has to understand. Like they need to do this, because if he's this powerful, he can't be contained. Like, and he has an army going after him. Like there might be more people trying to free him. You just need to. You just need to. You know, otherwise you're not going to get to Tar Valon. Like he's going to break free and kill you.
Well, so before I started watching this one, we had obviously talked about like some of the spoilers that were out there, and they mentioned that, he would be gentled this episode. And I was under the impression that Leandrin was just going to do it. Like she was just, especially at the beginning of the episode, when
Right.
you can tell she's kind of toying with this idea of doing it.
Right. Well, yeah, she's got her red sisters to agree
Right.
already.
Right. So I was under the impression like maybe this would be a little bit of a power trip for her and like not a necessary move. And then you see the whole episode unfold and like absolutely agree. Like you have to do this. You can't not do this at this point.
Right. Like they've already killed one full sister.
Yeah.
Who's one of the most powerful of them.
Yeah.
Naga. And it was I thought it was gonna, after we read that spoiler, and I was like, oh, okay, like I thought it was gonna be like the end cap where everything's fine, and then Leandra and her sister show up in the tent at late night, and he's
just
like, you can't gentle me, and she's like, no, F you, we're gonna do this.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you saw it too, where when he did break free, when he was being contained by them, they were struggling so hard to do it. And then he didn't even bat him. Like he just did it. He was like, yeah, whatever, and knocked him back.
Yeah.
It was almost like the entire time they were trying to contain him. And they even noted that they're like, he hasn't even broken out into a sweat. Like he's just sitting there. And it felt like after when I saw that, I was like, was he just sitting there and kind of like buying time to kind of build his strength, so to speak, so that he could just knock them out? Because he did it so effortlessly. And when you see that, not only did he do it so effortlessly, but he did it multiple times in a row, that I feel like you just don't have a choice.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the thing about it is with him, I think that's one of the reasons I think maybe that was their weekend thing was staged.
Right.
Because I think he was trying to break out the whole time, and then they kept like, I bet that they just weakened themselves a little bit, and then he broke free from their stuff because suddenly they had weakened themselves intentionally so that he could break free. But or he was just waiting for his army to come. But I don't know how he would know that his army was coming at that time. But yeah, like either way. Also, we saw a red sister just get shot with arrows, which was satisfying.
Yes, we did see that. You're right.
Nice.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on it? I don't know what else we can go into other than whoa.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen now, but yeah, it was intense, and yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
That was wild.
It was just totally wild. What about you? Anything else?
I want to watch the next episode now.
This one, after the first three, I was like, I can wait, and I was kind of wanted to watch it, but frankly, the show was not that exciting to me. I was like, well, we saw it. There were disappointments on the level that I just don't know if I can take more pummeling if they go the wrong direction. But this was, they pointed directly in the right direction this episode. Who knows what the next one's going to be, but this one had the perfect mix of things for me, at least.
Yeah. Man. Well,
and at the end, I will point out too, the King of Gildon just like died and no one cared.
Oh yeah, he did. I forgot that he died. Oh well.
No. Peace.
That's what you get, I guess.
There's more to do with Gildon in later books for sure. They spend a lot of time on it actually from one character, but yeah. So the king needed to die at some point.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see Loyal next episode.
Yeah, you have to think. You have to think that the net, like 7 and 8, everyone's gonna be together again, is my guess. At least in episode 7 and 8
Mhm.
for the final, whatever the last confrontation is going to be.
So we have 4 more episodes, so we're halfway through.
We're halfway through, so I'm guessing we have 2 I bet we see Loyal either next one or the one. I mean, so Loyal is probably going to be the guy. I bet he'll be in 6 or 7. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him till
Till
uh
6.
6. Yeah, maybe we'll see him next time. But like the way things are going, everything's so slow. Like they're going to need one episode to all meet up, and that would
Mhm.
probably be 5 or 6, is my guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because we don't know much about the dagger. We just know that it's starting to mess with Matt, and they might need one more episode to fully play that out. I bet that the next episode will be mostly focused on Matt and
Mhm.
Rand and Perrin and Egwene get into trouble with White Cloaks. That's my guess.
Good point. Yeah. It would make sense to go back to them, flush out their storylines, and then you can kind of have everyone converge at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Otherwise, if not, we can just call it good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I think we went over everything.
Okay, so thank you everyone for watching and or listening. We'll have our normal podcast out at the same time as last release, but hope you guys enjoyed it or whatever. Hope you enjoyed our discussion of it at least, even if you hated this episode. And yeah, thanks
Yeah.
everyone for watching. May you always find water and shade. So is that our sign off? I don't have our cheat sheet.
That's it.
Have a good one, everyone.